Hey everyone, Audrow here. Imagine getting your food delivered in just 30 seconds. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's exactly what today's guest is working on. I'm talking with Canon Reeves, the CTO and co-founder of Pipedream Labs. They're building an underground delivery network using pipes and autonomous robots. It's like a subway system, but for your burrito. If you're into robotics, urban planning, or just curious about the future of delivery, you're going to love this episode. Canon walks us through their journey from fast food pickups to potentially revolutionizing citywide logistics. Let's dive in. Would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Canon Reeves. I am the CTO and co-founder of Pipedream Labs.
Awesome. Would you tell me about some of the details of Pipedream Labs?
Yeah, we're Pipedream. We are out of Austin, Texas. We've got a team of about 10 or 12 people, kind of growing right now. Yeah, we do underground delivery. So there's a lot to kind of unpack within that. I don't know if you want to get the whole pitch right now.
Sure.
Sweet. Yeah. So we believe that autonomous delivery is coming at some point for our cities. It doesn't make sense for a person to kind of be driving your burrito. And we looked at all of the sort of modalities around to do that, whether it's a car or a drone or a sidewalk robot. And we just felt like there wasn't a solution that was fully adequate to work today. And we looked at how do we get our utilities now, our internet, our water, our sewage. It's all underground. And cities have really been built for this. And so it kind of led us to thinking, is it possible to have a thin pipe in the same way you have a water pipe? If not to your home, at least to your area. We started going down this rabbit hole in like 2020, 2021, and have been at it ever since.
Hell yeah. And so thin pipes, tell me more about that. What does the whole system look like? And how are these, like, what are you doing with these pipes to get people food?
Yeah. So we lay all of these pipes ourselves, and they are basically the same material as your standard storm drain pipes. So this stuff, there's like already miles and miles and miles of this in a city. We do have to add it in. But basically we put a small rail into these pipes, and we turn them in from dumb pipes into smart pipes, with a little robot that's kind of like a train. So there's really not much to the underground part of the system. We try to keep it as simple as possible. To be a utility, you really have to keep it simple, make it something you can always maintain and continue to upgrade.
Yeah, for sure. So with the tracks in it, I'm thinking kind of like little train tracks for these to go on. Is it very similar where you just have your point of contact? And I think I saw in videos that they're rubber wheels, which is probably how you grip them. But then you maybe have a little inner wheel on the inside of the track that keeps it on, so you can just like accelerate and go. Is this how it is?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like a roller coaster. So there's several sets of wheels that keep you defined in all degrees.
Oh, so you have little like clasps wrapping around the tracks in a sense so that it doesn't like fly off if it's going real fast and there's like a bump or something.
Yeah. And then you've got something that kind of keep you right side to side. And so from the robot's perspective, it's just go forward, stop, or go backwards. But the mechanical system really keeps it aligned.
Okay. And so how did you, backing up a little bit, so how did you decide food delivery and how did you decide that this was the approach? You mentioned looking at drones and looking at several other technologies, but I'm interested, was it food delivery that was the main thing that you wanted to do and that drove finding the solution, or did you find the solution and go to food delivery, or how did we arrive at this?
So we think about last mile delivery as a whole, not just food delivery. So food delivery is a kind of a good common one because it's one of those few categories that is express. So within the next 30 minutes of you placing that order, you really want it and you're used to getting it. But we see it in grocery, e-commerce, anything, cross country. So like not the pipes, but just, packed, just general parcel. So yeah, anything last mile. The reason we focus on that is that's where a good 40 to 50% of the costs of the delivery are in that last mile.
You say 40%?
Yeah, 40 to 50. Double, don't
But
don't take those numbers for Bible.
It's like it's a substantial part of the whole shipping cost is the last mile cost. Because I guess when you're shipping things over from overseas in a giant shipping container, that's you have so many goods, so the cost per good is very low. And then when you're doing it in warehouses are really efficient. The routing, the big trucks to send them around. And then so you have to keep getting smaller and smaller. And then you get to these little trucks with an individual driver driving around the little truck. And so then that cost is, you're saying like a huge percentage of the total cost of the whole shipping probably because it doesn't have good economies of scale for this kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's some categories like Parcel and Amazon, they're able to batch and go once a day and get
Yep.
enough things on the
And they have
route that
enough
it's not
volume. Yeah.
exactly. And you got to have that volume. But when you look at food delivery or any kind of like on-demand express delivery, you don't have that luxury of being able to fill up an entire van. You've got just your item. And so that's where the economics
Oh,
really break down.
I see. So when you have the van, even though I was saying it's less efficient, which is probably true, it probably is still a good bit of the cost, they still get some economies of scale by having so many to deliver in the neighborhoods that they go through and everything, that it's worth it. Whereas it's very hard if you're doing like one DoorDasher carrying one sandwich, this kind of thing. That's where it's very expensive. I would imagine that gets
Absolutely.
really, really expensive very easily. Okay.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Okay. So you're thinking more, it's more parcel delivery, but you were looking for something that has urgency with it and doesn't have a good solution, and that's how you arrived at food delivery?
Yeah. And I don't think anybody here really thinks of ourselves just as food. We've got some
Hmm.
beachheads in food as a category, but we're really going for the whole pie.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Yeah, on the website I saw mostly food.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I suppose it makes sense. Yeah, it's a beachhead in a
Yeah.
sense
And
to
so,
this.
yeah, to kind of give light on that too, one of the things we realized as we started to go down this path is like, there's two kinds of nodes in a network like this. There are supply side nodes and then demand side nodes, which is like your
Hmm.
homes, office parks, hospitals.
Yep.
On the supply side, you've got a few different categories. You've got your warehouses, your restaurants, your grocery stores. And we started to look for ways to provide value in those supply side nodes ahead of building the full network because, the company's still
Definitely.
Pipedream. We know this is going to be crazy. Going to be a lot of work to go install all of these pipes. We wanted to see if there's a way for us to add value and start working with these supply side partners, start generating revenue and start adding nodes to the network ahead of the full network. What
Hmm.
we landed on is this product that we call Instant Pickup. And it's basically like a bank tube, but for food. So if you could imagine placing your fast food order on your phone, pulling it to an automated kiosk and getting your food in 30 seconds and going. If we can make that experience to get that fast food so much faster, get the customers to download the app so they're going to be ordering more, it's going to be a more convenient experience. We can start to install these instant pickup locations across the country way ahead of these networks and start to generate
Mm.
revenue, start to work with these partners. And the key is that it's all the same underground technology. You're just making it a little bit different of a portal. And so that's where a lot of our kind of food delivery stuff goes. That's where most of our early partners are in
Oh
the,
yeah.
the quick serve restaurant space.
Very cool. Yeah, it seems to me like the more that I've been doing this, like interviewing different startups and things, it seems like the real challenge is the sequencing of how you generate revenue without investing too much. Because if you say you were to like just try to raise billions of dollars to lay tons of pipe down all at once, that would be maybe if you guys were the best at raising VC money and things like this, like maybe, but then it's like you might be a little off. It might not be the best market fit. It might be, I don't know, who knows? Like the idea could be slightly different, or it just could take years before you're profitable. So you can't, it's like you're at a disadvantage for that. But you can grow through finding these good ways of going through it that makes it so that the investment is probably more on your terms. You get to develop the things piecewise, which is just way better. So it seems like you're taking that approach. And so you're starting with food and you're starting with restaurants, like just to make it so I understand that, is it like we'll have a Wendy's and Wendy's drive-through gets kind of crowded. So what we'll do is we'll make it so that the like surface area of where people can go and pick up food is bigger. So we distribute it, and you have these robots just kind of send it out to them wherever the people are. It'll be like an airport pickup, but for food kind of thing. Is that right? Or
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it really turns the fast food model on its head a little bit. Most of these locations and restaurants are kind of built around their drive-through. It's where a lot of their revenue
definitely.
comes through. And the drive-through is all about convenience. Customers want to get there, get the food, and get out quickly. With our system, we can now do a disjointed drive-through and anywhere in their parking lot. It doesn't have to be just their kind of area. It could be an entire strip mall anywhere in there. They could place this portal. They can now create an order point where customers can more quickly get their things. A big part of that is because we have automated storage connected to the store. So when you place your mobile order, it waits until you get within a certain distance, like say, you're 5 minutes
Ooh,
away.
that's cool.
They'll start making the order. They'll put it into this automated system. And so when you pull up, the food is still fresh. but it's just 30 seconds to get it over to you and then you can get on your way. So we can create a faster experience and drive loyalty to these restaurants and do it in a way that's like every restaurant could be different. Where they put this portal, how many they put, it's just totally up to them because
Hmm.
it's all just, routed underground.
That's really cool. And then you have a very convincing way of selling it to them, which is more efficient. Like you get to focus more on the kitchen, you get to focus more on producing orders. It's really cool if they have the app and the app has the location of the person so that you can make it so that when they're close, so it's warm right when they get there. That's really cool. You mentioned you have partners with this?
We do. Yeah. I can't name any names, but we have a few different brands that we are working with and working on a
Hmm.
pilot right now. So
Gotcha. Okay. Really cool. And then so that with that approach, why not just use bank tubes that are air pressure driven? Because it seems like the scale of the networks that you need are smaller, and that seems to be something that's very well thought out. Maybe robots are more scalable and easier to add like robots to the system. But why not just go with one of these like more convention, make it a bank tube setup for these fast food
yeah,
ones?
a lot of
And
it
why
comes
haven't they
down
done
to,
that themselves? I suppose too,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it
a
seems
lot
like
of
it
it.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's you would think so, right? I think it's really when you think about the bank tubes, how they're routed in multiple directions. If you imagine like your burger and your shake being inside of that, it's like turning it upside down, like twisting it, like it may come out like a salad and have your drink spilled everywhere. So, our system,
Yeah,
we've got a pretty large tote that holds your order, and we maintain the orientation, control the acceleration at all points. So your
ah,
food is going to be delivered in a good quality. And then also allows us to do some things like automating the storage. So when you get there, you get it faster.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I really like that. So yeah, you can control for the accelerations. You have a lot more control than just sending a tube through a big vacuum for this kind of thing, and that makes it so it's a lot better for food delivery because you don't get like this giant mixed thing of everything you ordered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense. That's super cool. And then how does that allow you, I guess the robot is similar, the piping is similar, and then having it move towards last mile delivery, like, tell me about that because that seems like quite I'm sure there's additional problems there. Um, tell me how that's going and how you're negotiating those problems.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll go with a really simplified model of it and then kind of expand it out.
Sure.
If you
Sounds great.
imagine, this fast food restaurant that is 5 minutes away from you and, you're on your lunch break and you're like, okay, I just want to get this and get out quickly. Like I really care about it being a fast experience. Um, you're probably going to go there instead of driving to another part of town to go to a different restaurant, even if they're both like the same speed, or if there's a restaurant you kind of want more. If it's too far away, you don't want to go there. With our system, we kind of envision a world where we build this sort of like expanded drive through in the parking lot. But if you imagine expanding that out, maybe just a couple miles downtown, and you go from an area that's like really commercial area with a lot of restaurants and you move it to more residential area. So now if you're in that residential area and you're thinking to yourself, well, where do I want to go eat? What's going to be the fastest? If that's kind of what you're looking for right now, um, this portal is almost like a drive-through for that location that's further away. So you can order
Hmm.
and get your thing here and go pick up. And it's just going to be a much faster experience because now maybe you don't have to cross a major road. Now you don't have to go sit in traffic. You're just kind of going to the edge of your neighborhood.
Hmm.
Um, if you imagine that, and then you add a couple other things to that system. If you add grocery items, if you add some convenience store items, if you add a few more restaurants, once you get the customer used to using that, when they are thinking about what they want to buy next for lunch, they're going to go to that app that kind of has all of those items. And they're more likely to
Hmm.
buy from that because it's closer and more convenient. You still have to drive and go pick it up, but it's kind of the same thing as like if there was a drive through for that restaurant, just all the way over. So
Hmm.
anyways, that's kind of how it's a very simplistic model of one of the ways that this network scales beyond just sort of the parking lots of these areas.
Yeah.
You
That's a
have
good
to approach it.
intermediate for sure.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, it's like having more locations, but you also can have, I don't know, a Wendy's and Taco Bell and a local restaurant, and you can have them all routing into the same network because they're often like clustered, it seems, for these kinds of things. And then you can have them all go to the same endpoint, and at your endpoint, you can even distribute so that it's not like one drive-through, but like 15 drive-throughs.
Totally.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
you can just find
go ahead.
places where you can find places where there's sort of like abundant, underutilized parking areas like strip malls. And now you can
Oh,
add things to them. And so you can kind of change the value of real estate. Like instead of opening up a new food location at that area, you just have to plug into this network at any point in that
that's
network.
super cool.
And now you get
Okay.
all these outputs.
And so that's kind of like intermediate growth. That's making it so you drive to a location, but that location can be outside of where there's major traffic. It can be close to population centers. It could be both. It could be other different constraints that make it so how you choose, or that dictate how you choose. And then from there, I suspect you can just keep growing the network, so that it gets closer and closer to people's homes. Like it could be in their neighborhood, but then it could be to their house if it was like you guys have expanded enough for this kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because you start to see network effects on both sides. So the more demand side nodes we add, the more customers we make this convenient for, the more
Hmm.
value this provides to the businesses on the other side. But the more businesses you add to the other side, the more options the customers have. So the more they're purchasing through that system. And
Hmm.
so the goal is that you get this sort of like not organic, it's a lot of planning, but you get this sort of network that expands over time. And as cities like continue to build and add on, whether they're building apartment complexes or neighborhoods, you start to really plug into those from when they're being constructed. And that's when you kind of get that in-home experience. And you also get delivery. So if I put this portal near you, and let's say you don't want to go pick it up, like let's say you're a parent, you're watching a kid, like you don't want to go get in the car, you can still have a delivery driver make that final delivery, but because
But
it's
they
so
just pick it up.
close,
Yeah.
it's cheaper because you're just really, really close.
Huh. It'd be funny if there was like a gig Uber in your neighborhood, or like a gig DoorDash or something in your neighborhood where you can pick up the package for you and your neighbor, and you get $1 or something like
Yeah.
that if you drop it at their thing because you're already
Y-
going. That'd be
Yeah.
that'd be super cool.
It'd be really cool. And you can kind of mix demand. Like you could have your Amazon package in
Yep.
that. You could have somebody's food order. You could have somebody's parcel. And like, because it's all coming from one point, you can really batch it there.
Yeah. Now, I see a few things that are really interesting, and I'd like to get your thoughts on. I mean, the first one to me is the size of the tunnel for this kind of thing. Because looking at the videos, it looks like they're like a 1 foot diameter pipe. Maybe they're a bit bigger, 18 inches or something like this. Is it true? Or am I,
So the initial system was 18 inches. We
ah,
actually started at 12, then went to 18.
I've
Um,
seen videos, and I guess that's
yeah.
why. That's
Yeah.
pretty funny.
But we actually ended up moving recently to a 24-inch system. So we
That
started
seems
working with some
better.
grocery partners. Yeah, and it's more dirt you have to move. It's more pipe material, so there's an added perfect cost. But when you're digging up a trench like this, it's not that much bigger to add
Oh,
6 inches.
yeah, for sure.
So that's kind of where we went to.
And it probably moves it. And eventually, I mean, you might have a 3 foot one or something like this. But okay, so you're increasing the size. I'm just wondering, like, it seems like I just talked with a company, QB, hey, and they are shipping you a factory and shipping containers, like those 40-foot ones.
Yeah,
And so the thing that is interesting to me is it's like the easiest way for them to move what they're shipping is to just conform to these super efficient transport methods already. And I wonder if you guys like had a incredibly distributed network and you chose everything to be a 12-inch pipe, it'd be like, okay, well, you get a pizza, but it's cut in thirds and then they're all stacked or something like
yeah,
this because it's real efficient to send or something like this. But you're making it bigger, and that makes it so more goods are able to be sent more easily, I suppose,
yeah,
which is great.
yeah. That's the exact reasoning why we started the smaller sizes. Our take was that as delivery becomes near free and
Hmm.
almost instantaneous, you are no longer batching and getting a whole shopping cart's worth of things. You're getting just kind of your individual items.
As
And
you
so
need
we
it.
thought,
Hmm.
yeah, and that's going to be cheaper to lay. And so we started at that approach. But what we realized is that for this to work, it's a huge coordination problem
Yep.
between like supply side partners and cities and landlords and construction companies and all these people. And
A lot of
if you are
stakeholders in some sense.
tons of stakeholders, yeah. And so if you're not able to kind of conform it and address existing problems as like an existing customer behaviors, it makes those conversations much harder. And so we opted to kind of size up the pipe. That way you can fit, your full thing of toilet paper, your full thing of paper
Yep.
towels, anything that you'd really need at your house coming from a grocery store, which opens up just such a large market for us.
For sure. Yeah. And there's not really anything like it. And I suppose that a big reason there's not anything like it is because it's really hard to do with this, with all of the, because you guys have to work with all the stakeholders and you have to, like, you had to find a good pipe solution and you need some robotics knowledge to make all this work. So it seems like a super hard problem. And if you tried to do like the boring company thing where it's super deep and stuff, now it's super expensive to do because those are enormous tunnels. But if you just lay it like a utility, that's very clever for this kind of thing. Tell me a bit more about the piping. And so you said it's sewer piping, which is probably a big advantage that it's not going to let water in, I would imagine. So that makes it easier for your systems. Go ahead. I guess tell me more about the piping.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we use corrugated storm drain pipe. Um, and yeah,
And
in previous
corrugated,
systems.
it means kind of like cardboard, where it's like you have the back and forth going between the two edges. So it's like bouncing between, so you get a little
Yeah.
bit of insulation, I suppose. Or what's the point of corrugating it, I suppose?
More so,
Flex.
you want to minimize material and maximize strength because you're putting these under roads and things, and so there's a lot of weight kind of compressing these
Oh,
pipes. And so by
it's like a bridge or
doing,
something with all the
yeah,
triangles
yeah,
from the corrugated.
there's
Okay.
sort of like an inner layer and then this kind of separate one, like you said, that has these ridges to it, and so that gives you your strength. Yeah, that's it.
And so laying these, you're just, is it hard to do in cities? So I'm assuming that I think we talked before, and there's a city where you guys are building the city with these, like you're building the city as you're laying these pipes in the case, right? Or is that something, or am I imagining?
It's something that we've talked to a few partners about,
Hmm.
kind of new build master plan communities installing. We've actually done a retrofit in Peachtree
Okay.
Corners, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, about a mile.
Hell yeah. So tell me about so the retrofit. I just like digging in like New York City. I feel like they're like completely full underground. Like there's no space for this kind of thing. But maybe other cities it's a little bit different. Tell me about retrofitting.
Yeah, we really thought that it was going to be sort of a nightmare to do that and permitting, and
That would
what
be
it
my
really
guess
comes.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'll touch on permitting and then construction because they're very interconnected.
Uh-huh.
Um, by using existing utilities, methods, and materials, permitting has actually been pretty straightforward for us.
Yeah.
Cities are really comfortable with these kinds of things because there's not a lot of opportunity to cause harm to citizens. It's really out of the way. The construction, like you don't want to shut down roads, and like sometimes it's annoying to have construction in your city, but people are really used to that.
Oh, it's all the
It's not
time.
like,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, it's not like if you wanted to go deploy a self-driving car, like there's a very high standard there because you have the ability to inflict harm on citizens. We just don't have that, and so the permitting has been pretty straightforward for us, especially on the smaller builds that we do. We're not doing anything that's kind of like hanging above people. We're just kind of adding stuff underground. So people don't really care as much from the permitting
Is it very
perspective.
expensive to add it underground? Like I imagine, so I'm imagining, I don't know where it'd be. Maybe it's on the side of roads or something. Um, and where it's underground, but it's like not covered by asphalt, or maybe it is covered by asphalt and you have to rip up the road to do it. Is it expensive? Is it difficult? Like I don't know much about this.
Yeah, we do it in the city right of way. So just to the side of the sidewalks. And
Okay.
so you're really just kind of tearing up grass, and where you can, you've
Ah,
just got a backhoe and you're just trenching. So
yep,
there's two kinds of ways to install the pipe: trenchless and trench. We prefer trenching. It's a little bit cheaper. But basically you open up the earth, you move this dirt. There's other
yep.
utilities, you work around those, and you go and do scan where you deploy so you know what's there and where.
Ah,
But yeah, it's pretty much like dig a big hole, put some stuff in it for backfill, put your pipe in, put some more backfill in, and cover it with dirt. There's your pipe. It's in the ground.
cool. Okay, hell yeah. And is it I suppose that if you were to do it in New York or San Francisco, it'd be more expensive than doing it in Georgia or I don't know, Texas, like San Antonio or Austin. Uh Tell me a bit about that because I guess all the regulations and things like this or maybe even existing systems that you might have to work around.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're in those more crowded places like New York and SF, like you mentioned, I think those would be some of the last locations we go to. They,
It's so funny that like SF being like a hub of innovation and whatever, it's so hard to get anything done. So things
yeah,
arrive there last. Like I'm in San Antonio now, close to you guys. And we have super fast internet, and I did not when I was living in San Francisco, which was really funny. It kept going down all the time because flaky systems. But like
yeah,
the tech hub kind of thing doesn't get the tech for a long time, which is so funny. Okay.
yeah.
So, okay, so those are some of the last places that you're likely to go. It's cheaper and easier to do it other places that have maybe less regulation or less existing systems. And then you lay down the pipe. How does the one thing we haven't talked about yet is the endpoints? So
Mhm.
where people pick things up. What does that look like?
Yeah. So we call them portals. And I would argue it's about half to two-thirds of our development efforts go actually to the interface points. The
Yeah.
underlying transportation is pretty simple.
Hmm.
Um, for every customer that we work with, we create, every customer segment rather, we create portals that are specific to that kind of need.
What is a customer segment for this? You mean like a use case for this, or it's like these
Yeah.
are drive-through picker-uppers? Is this kind of thing? Is
Um,
this a customer segment?
More so like a quick serve restaurant, grocery, in-home, warehouse, kind of the like on the supply side, different segments.
I see.
Uh, and really where the differences come is like the volume of totes and the way that customers interact with them.
Hmm.
So a fast food store, they're really only sending one tote over and the customers are kind of, it's like a pretty immediate thing. Whereas with grocery, they're sending several totes per order and the customers are used to kind of getting out of their car and loading their stuff. So it just changes based on how the customer is going to interact with the system. And then it also changes based on how the workers are going to put things into the system.
Mm.
So for our quick serve restaurant system, we have a very small, we really try to get as small as footprint possible because kitchens are so tight back there. That's the input. So a worker could put in food into one tote at a time and send that tote, we'll go store it. And then when you output, you have a portal that presents it, it lifts the tote up and presents it out to you. And so
Hmm.
when you think about somebody handing you something through a drive-through window, there's somebody kind of leaning over and handing, and you're kind of leaning over and grabbing.
Uh-huh.
We move totes around. That's sort of the base thing in our system. And
Cool.
so we just lifted a tote up and made you like reach over. It'd be a really bad experience. And so we put a lot of effort into, okay, we're going to lift that tote up and we're going to extend it out to you. We're going to
Huh.
make it easy to grab. So we have to put a lot of effort into making these systems like safe and easy to work with and like a pleasant kind of pickup experience.
Yeah,
And
very
that takes a lot of time.
ergonomic for the
Yeah.
users,
Yeah.
kind of what they'd expect. That's such a funny thing because it's not something you would necessarily expect it's not something I would expect when starting out on a problem that a large amount of it. I mean, I guess it makes sense once thinking about it for a little bit that it's like, okay, well, you need to make it so users really like using it because if it's super inconvenient, like you basically want to be way better than the alternatives because the alternative is driving for them. And if they have to like do a super painful maneuver to reach it and deal with some like clampy jaws around it that are frustrating or something like this, then they'll just go drive the 5 minutes to the restaurant rather than taking your pipes. Interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, you think about the number of different customers and types of people that this has to serve and like use
Hmm.
cases for how far they can grab. And it quickly becomes driven, like that drives up and then the drive a lot of things. And that's why we call them portals. We want this to feel magical. It is like a really cool
Oh,
thing to get your stuff like delivered underground.
super
It's
cool.
invisible. Yeah. And so we want to make sure that we're building that DNA and that muscle as a company of building great user experiences because at the end of the day, it's got to be a human putting it into the system and it's got to be a human taking it out at some point. So you got to
Yeah.
make it great on both sides.
How do you balance that with being a startup with limited resources and how do you make sure it's not premature optimization in a sense? Because you could fixate completely on this and you could bankrupt the company making the perfect user experience, or you could solve a painful enough pain point, which it sounds like you're doing, um, that customers deal with the crappy jaws that clamp around it and make it like they have to fight for the food a little bit or whatever. How do you balance that?
Yeah. So for one, we try to hire just killer engineers who are capable of thinking about things almost as a product owner as much as they do an engineer.
Love
And
it.
so typically for these portals, we only have one engineer designing that entire thing. And so they've got to be, both really fast and really good as an engineer, but they also have to really care about what it's like to use this thing. And the second thing we do is we push for like 70 to 80% customer experience in the hardware. And then we plan to improve the rest in software. And so you
Hmm.
want to get all of the main axes that you're going to end up having, and you want to have like all of the screens and sort of the accessories planned in and designed in, but you don't necessarily need to get those to a 10 from an experience level
Oh,
when you ship. So you just kind of like
that's
get the
clever.
core motion there and then fix the rest in software. So we'll tune that kind of motion control when it comes out to you so it feels nice. And we'll tune the opening of the door. But for now, just make sure there is a door that opens and make sure there is a thing that comes out.
It's so clever. Yeah, you can shove it into the software, all that tuning and the fine behavior. I really like that. Building the capabilities, making it so you have access to the things you think you're likely to need, and then you can really refine from there. And it's very low cost, and pushing out the changes is very easy. And you don't have to like swap big parts of every single portal that you
Yep,
have and this kind of thing, which I would imagine gets very expensive very quickly for this kind of thing.
absolutely.
Okay. I like that a lot. I feel like that's such a clever thing. And just to push it all into software. And I know we've seen that a lot with like a lot of companies are doing that with a lot of products, but it's, I don't know, something about that's really cool to me.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So you have these different portals. These portals have different interfaces depending on which customer segment. How does it, with the robots? I think we talked earlier and it was that you have like loops that the robots go on to get to a spot so you don't have them like trying to go opposite ways down the same track. Tell me about the like routing them and how do you switch tracks and all the details of getting them from A to B or C or D or E or whatever, all your endpoints.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The cool thing is that we've made the system to be just very modular and can be arranged in so many different configurations based off like what is optimal. Like when you think about it, we're making a product that can work, really a machine that can work at the size of a parking lot or a full city. And every city and every parking lot is going to be different. And so you have to like be able to adapt and fit into these things. And so the only way to do that, in my mind, is to reduce the base components of that system down to the most simple things possible.
Love it.
And
Hell yeah.
once you do that, you can really mix and match these things. And you almost you get it to a point where even the customers themselves are able to mix and match these components to get what they want.
Huh.
But yeah, the base components for the transportation, like a locomotion system, you've got pipe and rail and robots go straight. But from there, all you really need are like turns and then junctions. And junctions are just small switches where the rail is what changes rather than the robot. So the robots have no concept of turning; they're just going
Forward only.
Yeah, forward, backward, stop. That's all they got.
Uh-huh.
It's some differential when they're going around turns, but yeah, you basically make the track that can adapt.
Mhm.
And you do this all within standard utility basins. So we have these like big plastic basins that we drop in anywhere you want to make a turn or you want to make a junction. And there's a manhole cover. And so these are powered components, these junctions, but they're really easily accessed and serviced by going into that manhole. So yeah.
Is power, I don't know anything about being in a manhole. And the is it hard to get power to them? Do you like I could imagine you don't need that much power because you're just switching tracks, but so I'm imagining like you could even have batteries that you swap occasionally as like a very simple, not very scalable solution for this kind of thing. But is it can you like tap into other utilities that are down there? Or like you break
There's
a
a
wire that exists that's already passing power if it's underground and then you um I don't know, power it that way and then or I don't know. How do you get utilities to those junctions?
Yeah, when you're going citywide, there's a couple different options. I think about it as of like building a new building and then tapping in.
Mhm.
You can also on our shorter installs, we just run conduit with power and data in it. So once you
Oh.
open that trench up, that's most of the cost. Is just opening that big trench and then filling it back in. So if you wanted to throw in a little
Oh.
2-inch thing of pipe with just like power in it, it's not a big deal.
That's cool. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So you just basically have long wires that go the whole length of it.
Yeah, and
You don't need go ahead.
I'm sure that'll change as we go to the citywide, but most of our installs right now we're just really parking lot size, so it's easy.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you had to go for like miles, if there would be transmission losses or something that you'd see on the electrical side because like they have boosters every now and then for electrical ones. I don't know how frequently they are.
Yeah, I think we'd have to do something a little more complicated and probably tie into different points. I'm definitely not an electrical engineer, but
I am, but I don't know
it's
anything about this. So,
but yeah,
okay. So that's a solution for now, basically. Yeah, I could see like you could try to place your junctions very intelligently so that they're close to locations that you have power and things like this. So that is like say it's like there's a junction at each restaurant. You connect all of them in a loop or something, and so it can decide to go to the restaurant or not, this
Yeah.
kind of thing. And you just have the restaurant power it because you're adding that infrastructure anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you have that little pipe. So you have the big pipe that has the rail that sends the robot down. You have another pipe for your shorter ones where you just have another pipe inside of the other pipe that has power, so you can have junctions for it. That's really cool. So those are powered and you can get switching. How do you, we talked about this before, but not on this interview, and I don't remember the full answer. How do you handle failure cases? Your robot burns up and a wheel falls out, falls off in the middle of the track. How do you handle this kind of thing?
Yeah. The
And also
key is
comms
just,
with the robot too would be interesting to talk about too.
yeah, those are the fun ones. You just have to assume that it's going to break. I mean, it is
Oh
going to
yeah,
break
definitely.
at some
Especially if
point.
you have enough of them.
Yeah,
Your success will be that you have robots breaking in bad locations because you're running them so frequently for this kind of thing.
absolutely. Yeah, we think about two kinds of failures. So one is like an intact failure where you just, lost comms, the computer reset, some kind of
Hmm.
power issue, but it's not destroyed. The other is, two robots collide for whatever reason. There's, it's not intact and it can't be pushed out. For intact failures where it can be pushed out, our robots are designed where they just literally passively push each other.
Hmm.
All for motors and direct drive. So they're very, very simple mechanical systems. And so if one dies, you just have another that pushes or pulls that other one out. And then you just take it to an access point. And at that access point, you can go recover it. And we've had versions of systems where you kind of put in like planned failure areas to where there's a junction that just pushes the robot off. So you just kind of want to get it off that main track.
So you can get
and
it
then,
later at your own leisure, in a sense.
yeah, so you don't have to kind of wait on a human operator. And then outside of that, if there's like a really catastrophic failure, like something insane happens, which, those will happen. The pipes aren't big enough to where you can go inside of them. We have a little cart that you can ride on. So you can just go and fix things. So yeah, as crazy as it sounds, it ends up you just end up going in there.
It sounds like the most claustrophobic thing I could possibly imagine. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like sitting on a little, I don't know, like one of those little, I don't know, like a luge kind of thing.
Yep.
And you're just zipping under the ground. That'd be crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
a big distance.
We have an 18-inch system in Atlanta. And so that's a lot tighter. But we've had to go in there and fix things on that. It sounds really scary, but when you get in there, it's just such a fixed environment.
That you're like,
you just
all
get
right,
so used to it.
that's wild. Okay. Hell yeah. Yeah. I don't think of myself as claustrophobic, but the idea of doing that is terrifying. Like being like under pipe for, say it's like a big one where you're in a city or something and it's like a half mile between points. Like you're a half mile enclosed by pipe. Oh my God. Underground.
Yeah.
No seal.
Yeah.
That would be nuts.
Usually you put access points pretty frequently.
More frequently.
Yeah, you really want them.
Frequently would you put them?
I would say like every couple 100 feet. It's really like low points.
Oh, okay. So you want
kinda
like a
wanna put
half
them-
mile stretch with nothing.
No, really like 500 feet's a pretty long stretch.
Okay. Well, then that's less terrifying, I would say. Because being that exposed would be nuts. And do you ever get like, I know they're sewer pipes, so they're probably quite good. But do you ever get like water in them or I don't know,
Never
are they
through the pipes.
undesirable? What?
Yeah, never through the pipes themselves. So the pipes that we use, they're rated for 100 years plus.
That's
And
awesome.
when they seal, like we fuse seal them, so it's as if
There's
it's
no
just one
chance,
lump too.
or basically no chance. Like you need a car to crash into them or something for them to bust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's really roots, like whatever goes into it or something, which we haven't ran into
Oh.
yet, just because it's like our systems haven't been in for that long, but it'll happen.
Huh. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, they'll burst the seal. Okay, so if you get water in your pipes, how does that work?
Yeah, you're gonna have to plan just for like robot killers. You have to plan that water will get in.
Yep.
You put bolts at low points and you put automatic pumps in them. And so if there's it's like an air bladder that gets lifted, we'll send some signals and say, oh, there's water in the system, but also we'll just start pumping it out and injecting it into the ground. So
I like it. Okay, hell yeah, that's a good failure mode for this. That you're basic. I like that you're already planning for this kind of thing, and that you have pumps that can remove the water and things like this, and then you have a sensor that lets you know about it, so then you can take corrective action, but you don't have to put down your system or anything necessarily.
absolutely. and, it sounds like we're smart and come up with these things, but we're just stealing ideas from utility companies. Like that's how they all work. You can go on Home Depot and even buy these exact same pumps, because these are just such common things, which is just, it's really nice. So we've got a civil engineer on the team, and it's so cool for her to just be able to pull things from other
Existing
solutions and
things.
apply them to us.
So cool. It's like software reuse, but
Yeah.
in hardware stuff, which makes sense that they have scalable, good systems. And also like sewer pipes, I'm sure every sewer is using these. Maybe not this exact one, but like pretty similar. There's a lot of lesson learned from all of humanity having sewage for this
Yep.
kind of thing. So yeah, it's really cool when you can tap into existing systems with this. I feel like that was very clever to do that. Hell yeah.
Yeah. It's really nice to have sort of like just multiple vendors that you can use. There's multiple kind of economies of scale, and like
Hmm.
it's an interesting market to borrow from because there aren't the same. I would say it's very commoditized, but not in the same way as like maybe like raw metal or raw plastic. Like there aren't as many pressures in construction world to get price down. You're really working with with like city
Totally.
clients. And so we definitely see a lot of room for us to take what is existing and really optimize cost and optimize process,
Oh, I
especially
bet.
when we're doing kind of one style of pipe all the time. So we see like there's a great starting point with what's there, but we see a lot of room for us to improve and
Oh, I'm
reduce the
sure.
cost.
Yeah, I mean, it's an old industry, and so it's been doing things for a while. And then I also think that a large cost, like talking to the QB people that I mentioned earlier, they 70% of the cost of building a home, if I remember correctly, is labor. In most places. And I mean, other places, it's like bonkers. It's even higher for that. You go to California, for example, it's probably even like go to San Francisco, it's probably much higher than that. It's like 90% or something. Um, but so if most of the cost is labor, which I think is a fair assumption, then why would you care about your materials being priced high? Because most of the cost is labor anyways for this kind of thing. It's like the
Yeah.
20% went up to 25% for the thing. It's like, no one feels
Yeah.
that really.
Yeah, ours is interesting because when you do such long systems, we talk about cost on the per foot basis, and so
Hmm.
you really start to pull out, and a lot of that material selection starts to actually matter a lot. It's
I bet.
honestly the cost is pretty well spread between like the pipe, the rail, the trench, and then you have like repair costs. So if you go through a sidewalk, you've got to repair that sidewalk, but then, like you said, you've got labor spread throughout all of that, and these
Hmm.
jobs are so big, even for a modest city network. There's so much money there. That the economics work out pretty well for us to uh, bring a little bit of those operations in house, and like
I
you
would
can
think
save some
so.
pretty good amounts of money.
I would think so. Yeah, because you guys, you're interested in scale because your system gets way more valuable if you get larger economies of scale for this. And so then that means you're going to be doing a lot of the same type of process. You're going to be laying a lot of pipe. And then, yeah, so it would make complete sense to me to optimize around that. And I bet you that you guys can find a lot of really good, as you're saying, you can find good efficiencies for that. You can pick good materials. You can reduce your cost per foot. And I imagine, actually, I think that'd be really cool is if you guys develop like this amazing way of putting pipe down, and then you can sell to all the utilities ones because your process is so much more efficient than their process for all the piping. Like that actually could be a good, eventually your
Totally.
company does this.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's we started with like, okay, what's the bare minimum just to like get to market
Yep.
and really go. Now as we're starting to get more into the way or that over where the expectations and bigger products. So like just started to get some volume here. Like, yeah, let's find these areas for us to go now. And yeah, it's just nobody else is really have the same pressure on this chick.
Hmm. And I would imagine that there's a lot of I can't I haven't thought of this too much, but I bet you that there's a lot of other opportunities for pipes. Like if you're really good at pipes, I'm sure that there's lots and lots of things that you can do that would bring value to a lot of people. Just I mean, moving things is obviously one of them, but I wonder what other things there could be. Obviously
Yeah.
normal utilities, but it seems like you guys are going to be in a really cool spot as you figure this out.
Yeah. I think we can go to city and something that, when you're retrofitting utilities, what they've done in the past is basically like we're opening up a trench. So it's just digging a big trench. you go to other companies that are like the PowerLink or anybody else, any of the other utility companies, and say, hey guys, we're going to open up this trench. Does anybody want to put stuff in there?
And they're like, yeah,
Right? Does
yeah, yeah.
anybody, it's
Oh,
like now
we've
that
been
we're very
waiting for someone to
totally
ask.
right.
Yeah.
So cities, cities are really pushing to bring all of the power lines underground, and like there's always kind of new utilities that need to go in somewhere. And so our hope is that as you really do those bigger projects, you coordinate with all of the parties in that area, and you line up to where you can, and that reduces the cost per foot for us because now we're getting
Definitely.
somebody else
So
in
you're getting
there.
other buy-in. Yeah, you might
Yeah,
make a profit on all parts of the process. I
which
feel
would be
like,
crazy.
yeah, I feel like it's like, I don't know, Amazon with their ebook, or let's see, what's a good example? I'm thinking of like I guess airlines and credit cards. It's like have you heard the thing where it's like airlines have planes, but the main business is credit cards for this
Yeah,
kind of thing? Or Amazon sends packages everywhere, but their main thing is AWS, the web services for all the server stuff they have. It'd be funny if you guys ended up like you're a robot company and that gets you to scale, but then you end up just being a pipeline company because you can do so much benefit, you can add so much value by doing that eventually. And you still have the robots for all the delivery and everything like that. And that would be a sizable, um, I don't know, part of like, it'd be a sizable, profitable part of the business anyways. But interesting.
yeah. I think there's going to be there's going to be a lot of ways that we create value, and it's really lasting value. Like if you have a pipe going
Hmm.
into your neighborhood or a type to a restaurant, that can stay there for as long as that neighborhood restaurant will stay there itself. I mean, these are, 100+ year systems. And so I think there's going to be a ton of value created by the system. And I think you're kind of spot on that we're probably going to find some different areas for us to extract other value. So whether
Hmm.
that is us becoming and selling, whether that's us like selling things on that system and plugging in directly, or, value added services off the pipe install. There's a couple different areas for you to pull that value, but I think the main thing is just to start with creating that value, making something that
Totally.
people really, really want to use.
Yeah, and the clever thing to me is that the sequencing that you guys are doing, where you're starting with fast food by just basically giving them a bigger drive-through, and then you can connect a few companies or a few fast food places or a few restaurants to these and effectively make it easier for customers to pick up. And then you can keep branching out. You can go to grocery stores and you can go to normal package delivery, like normal parcels. And you can keep going and keep building and reuse it all for sending anything around. And then while doing this, you're building valuable expertise in something that I imagine most people don't want to do for this kind of thing, which it's like the problem you're solving is really hard. And that's why you haven't seen many people come into the space, is what I imagine. It's a good moat in a sense, just the difficulty.
It is. I've definitely been, I had started and sold a company before this one, and I was in the educational robotics space. So I was making
Oh, wow.
robot kits for kids. It's like, there's a ton of competitors. And so it's really hard to be
Oh, yeah.
differentiated and
100%.
all that stuff. And I felt it's a lot harder to raise money for. It's a lot harder to just
Definitely.
like
It's a
sell.
commodity.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been such an eye opener for me to come work on a problem that is so difficult, but so
Yep.
rewarding at the end.
Hell
And what's
yeah.
cool about it, it's like the right kind of difficulty. It's not, one of our software engineer, Max, he co-founded Voyage, a self-driven car company. And it's such a different, like the problems you're solving are so different. Like there's not this like long tail of problems for us to solve. It's really like once you solve this at a small enough scale, you build the base system, you get good enough at construction, you can really go scale this.
Totally.
Because it's just, there's not really this like long unknown. It's pretty cut
You've
and dry.
de-risked it pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it becomes a spreadsheet problem. It becomes okay, there's this many customers here, this many restaurants here. This is how much pipe we need. This is when it will pay off. This is the loan we can get. Like, cool, let's go do construction and go do a ton of work after that.
Yeah, I think what it is to me, so you're saying you started this company, you have other people starting autonomous car companies at your company. Um, what it is to me that I've seen is a lot of robotics companies, when they try to go into a different domain, they end up having to be a CEO or CTO or whatever it is. They have to learn how to do a robotics startup, and they also have to learn how to do something in whatever that domain is. So they're really two companies fused at once. Whereas you guys, Pipedream to me, you guys are solving a simple problem. I say simple, it's a like incredibly difficult problem, but it's one problem. And then what you have to figure out is just the distribution of it. How do you roll it out? And it's like, what it feels like is you have a bunch of good options now, and you get to pick what you think is the best one. And so that's like your risk for this. Like, it's how efficiently you can possibly scale versus, oh my God, is the technology going to work? We need this critical part of technology. And oh my God, we need to find the market fit. It's like, because you just have multiple problems at once that are both existential to the company very often. And you guys are just building something that clearly people want, and your robotic systems are pretty simple. And I think that's awesome. Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
seems
man.
great.
It's great. And, I think my co-founder, our CEO, Garrett, he is so great at sales and building relationships with these partners that we have. And what we found is like, we prefer to sell ahead of building. So before we ever started really designing in a detailed way our instant pickup products, we had several customers who were like, okay, we want this one. Can we get this? And that allowed us to like develop it with them, but also meant that like, okay, those sales are there. Like we just have to go do this like technical stuff. And to me, it takes problems that are existential and brings them inside. So it
Yep.
becomes, can we make it? Not can we sell it?
Yep.
And to me, that's like the way to run a hard
Way
tech
better.
company. Any company. It's like, I'd much rather have pressure. Customer wants this, get it done faster than is anybody going to buy this?
Totally. And get it done faster too, because you're burning out of money. That's what I mean. The two problems for this kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what you guys are doing is like literally the advice of many people that I've talked to, where they're like, sell it first, then build it kind of thing. It
Yeah.
just makes things so much easier. And you have a good problem then too. So you don't have to worry about that because you already have buy-in from customers for this kind of thing.
Absolutely. And the customers you work with, they all have thousands of locations.
Yep.
And so it's, you get that big account, you still have franchise system. It wasn't like it's never easy, but you're just kind of selling to that one big customer.
Mhm.
And then it's a lot easier to kind of get continued sales after that.
Hell yeah. Yes, sounds super exciting. And I really like when it seems like a company can diversify itself or provide another service. Like when you have something big and amazing to grow towards, like that's super exciting. So you guys helping other companies lay pipe and infrastructure, like that kind of thing, that's a huge value that you guys could tap into. And it's really cool because it's like, how would you get there? If you wanted to just raise venture capital and get there right at the beginning, it probably wouldn't work. But because you're able to grow in this way that you're building your own pipes and you have a very good use case for it, and a lot of people are already paying for you to do it, they're pulling for you to do it. You get to scale towards that to become like almost a utility company, which is super cool.
Yeah. And we've always viewed, we think underground delivery is inevitable. Like we think that like there will be a delivery utility in our cities. And we always have felt like it's time in the market that will be the determining factor of if we get to be the ones that do it.
What do you
Because
mean?
this is such a hard coordination problem with so many
Yes.
stakeholders. And there's so many things that have to come together for that first network to go well.
Yep.
And for the flywheel to start spinning, that if we burn cash too quickly and we don't make sure that we're
Definitely.
here to kind of see those relationships through, our odds of failing are higher. And so we've
Yes.
always raised ahead of time, hit metrics ahead of where we were supposed to, and we kept the team way smaller than we should have. Like to the point of like, it's definitely been painful at times, but
Yeah.
by hiring only amazing people, you could pull it off. And so you get this really nice long runway, plenty of time to figure the things out and go do sales. And you do it with fewer people and you do it with better people.
Yeah. I've one of the really cool experiences that I've had working, actually an internship when I was in grad school, is I was an intern at a company called Halodi, which now they're 1X. They're one of those humanoid companies.
Yeah.
And the company was like 20 people or something like this. And everyone had a silo in it because it's like they're a little fast moving company. And they were able to move so fast. And it was so fun working with them because you can see this like really small team outperforming huge companies that are doing similar initiatives. And it's like, I don't know. So I imagine that's how you guys are with your small team. You have really good people because they had really good people too. They probably still do. I haven't talked to them in a bit. But yeah, it's amazing the velocity that you can get with good people working on a problem and they're really focused on it. And
Yeah.
it's a very clear problem too, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool because, you just have to get getting those right people is hard. Like hiring, this has been the most difficult piece has been hiring by far to me. But once
Hmm.
you get those right people, and if you know what is the right level to optimize to, the question you hit on earlier of like, how do you know when to stop kind of optimizing that
Yeah.
customer experience? If you get good at like not going too far, not going too little, finding that right balance for the time of the company, you can just keep everybody moving so quickly. And people,
Totally.
because there's so few people, we're all really kind of close to the customer and the customer's needs. It just means the whole team is brought in on making high level decisions and understanding like where we're going as a company. Like I'm huge proponent of smaller teams doing more.
Yeah, I love that. I think actually I'm not 100% sure on this, but it seems like an exciting thing. With all the AI stuff going on and with how distributed many companies are, like, so for example, if you need something, you can hire it out from a company and you can grow a relationship. Like the circle of concerns of your company could actually be kind of small, and you could have a small, fast moving team that outsources other things with other teams. And then it's almost like a lifestyle startup in a sense, which just seems like the coolest idea to me.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. I've really come around to using contractors.
Yep.
We've kind of grown our envelope of like specific mechanical contractors for
Hmm.
software. And so it's like, if you need that one kind of thing that's tightly scoped, you allow one engineer to manage like five contractors. And now that engineer's output is multiplied, as long
Yeah,
as those
exactly.
contractors are also good enough to like not be added
Oh yeah, you
bandwidth
have
to
to
them.
find good contractors. So it's a challenge in itself, but then you don't have to have that wing of the business, which is cool, which really it's like using a software library is how I think of it. Like I'm not going to write NumPy myself. I'll just use NumPy or
Yeah.
any linear algebra library. It's like I'll just use that one. I'll just use this contractor that does this. We don't have to have that expertise in house. We don't have to do the hiring or the coordinating with the lots of people. They can do
Yep.
that. They're doing a good job. This kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah. What have you so for hiring? How do you go about finding these great people?
We've done a mix of, I mean, honestly, Twitter has been our best source by far.
That's what I find. I mean, not that I'm hiring, but I am amazed at the quality of people that I meet on, well, X now. But yeah, it's unbelievable as a network. LinkedIn, everyone just likes stuff. X, it's like real substantive conversations, really great connections. Blows my mind. But
Totally. And
okay.
you want to find those, we want to find those like cool people who are just a little bit different. They're not
Uh-huh.
just a mechanical engineer, they're a mechanical engineer plus they're these other things. And,
Hmm.
and it seems like X is like really, it's great at servicing those people that want to do unique stuff and like to follow this kind of unique stuff. But, really our key for our hiring process has just been flexibility. I
Hmm.
really believe in kind of forming the role around the person. And so once we
Oh, I
find that
love
person
that.
that, we only, there's a lot of people we interview that could be good. And they seem like, great engineer by all
On
respects.
paper, yeah.
But you meet them and, they do the work. They don't have that kind of like wow factor that it's, oh man, we have to have you. And so
Yeah.
we take this approach of like, we're going to hire slowly. We're going to look at a lot of people. And until we see somebody that is a hell yes, we
I
have to
love
get
it.
them where we are mistaken.
Love
We
it.
don't hire. And
Love
it's
it.
painful for sure, especially on the engineering side. The stuff that we got to get out, but it's like, no, we've got to wait until we get that right person. Uh, and it's so rewarding when those people come together and that team comes together.
I love that. Yeah, I try to do that in life. Every decision, it's like, do I want to do this? It's hell yes or no kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So it's like
Yeah.
a 95% is no and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I love the I wonder, that was from a book too. Did you pick it up from a book or did their company?
I'm sure I heard it from somebody and just parroted
Yeah.
it.
What a funny thing. Yeah, I love that though. Okay. So you find these people, they're killer people. One thing that was really interesting to me on X, I've been putting out polls to try to understand my audience a little bit more. I asked a question if people are founders of robotics companies, want to be founders, or like have they already started a company? Do they have plans to start a company? Do they have no plans but still want to start a company, or no, they're not interested? And I don't know if it's biased to who sees the question or my audience or something like this. Like it's highly specific to who's following me, I think. But I think it was like 80% of people were interested in starting a company. 20% had already or were already founding a company for this kind of thing. It was like 40 or 50% that had definite plans or already were a founder. It was just bonkers. It was like
That's
I'm talking
crazy.
to founders by posting on X, which is just the craziest thing.
And that's all we want, you know?
Yep.
It's like, as founders, that's all you want. You just want to see other cool shit. You want to meet
Yep.
other founders. You want to hear people like, you don't want the LinkedIn crap. Like you just want to see people building cool stuff, and you want to like support other
Totally.
people. Like I love seeing other founders build things.
Uh-huh. And I think another cool thing with it is a lot of times, even if someone wants to start a company, they may realize the best next step for them is to join a company that is already promising so that they can get that experience, meet the good people, like develop their skills. And I think it's very much the process that you see. So it's just such a cool thing. And someone who wants to found a company, I think a lot of times they are doing a lot more than others because they are preparing for this. And so I think like there are a lot of really good people on there, which is just the coolest thing.
Yeah, it's something we've used almost as like a sales pitch and as a bonus of the office. So of working here, we are so supportive of founders. So we've had two people already come and start companies. One of them is still kind of
Wow.
working with us while moonlighting, work on another company. But our pitch is like, you know, with really killer people, you don't have them forever. They are going to kind of go to that next thing at some point. A lot of these people want to
Oh,
go start companies. Our pitch is like, come here, work in a small team, work on stuff you really care about, have a fun time with your day job. We're going to help set you up to go start that next thing. So whether that's like letting you use tools, space, making connections to our investors, hyping you up on Twitter, whatever that thing is, let's help you come here for a little while, then go start that next thing. And that for us, like that unlocks talent that is just hungry. Uh,
yeah,
but it also just kind of sets them up for a great next thing.
for sure. I think that's so cool. That's such a neat perspective because a lot of companies, to me, kind of have like a needy perspective, if it makes sense, where they're like, you come, you join us, you don't look at any other companies. You don't like stop doing any side hustle, stop doing whatever. And you just see this and it's like, but how am I going to be really good? It's like, I'm going to try all these ideas for this kind of thing. And I love that you guys are embracing it where you're like, we fit each other as long as we fit each other. Come, do great work for us. We'll try to help you as much as possible. It's almost like the best approach that you can imagine when dating or something like this, which is just so funny to me that to hear it
Yeah.
from a company perspective, and it makes a lot of sense and it seems very good to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, we're not going to have the cafeteria providing you every meal like Google is. But we can be that launch pad for you. And so it's like, you just got to own your strengths and
Totally.
lean into it.
What are your thoughts on, like I've heard from a number of startups that they have a hard time recruiting because a lot of big companies, just like a lot of the ambitious people, and maybe they're not founders per se, but a lot of the ambitious people may go to the big tech companies or something like this. They'll go to Amazon or Apple or whatever it is. Um, and also, those companies will offer pretty crazy compensation packages and things like this, which is a bit harder. I imagine you want to run a little bit leaner because you want people to, one, you don't want to take out too much, like you don't want to trade too much equity for money. And so people are probably paid a little less than they would if they were at Amazon or whatever. So how do you deal with competition from larger companies, and like the perks they might offer, or maybe it's the wrong type of person. I don't know. How do you think of it?
We got really lucky that most of our stuff is like mechanical.
Hmm.
We've got the majority of our engineers are mechanical engineers, and there
Oh,
just aren't really as many positions like that in these kind of big companies. And
you're right.
so software is really hard. Like if you're a robotics company that's very software heavy, which is most software or robotics companies for
I
sure,
agree.
you're competing with those people. But for us, like, we've got one software engineer. And
Wow.
yeah,
I imagine as you guys grow, you'll need more software. Like you said, you're putting the complexity in the software, but I guess you'll be in a better position for that, because you'll have raised more, you'll have more of a record, you'll be more promising, you'll be able to get investment on your terms. And if you're getting investment on your terms, you might be able to pay more without cutting off your arms or legs or whatever for that investment.
Yeah, and you can contract some of it too. So as long as you
You
have
can
the
contract
core,
too.
as long as you have the core robotic software, orchestrator, all those things. We've got a really, really killer software engineer. We actually are hiring our first, uh,
Exciting.
our second software engineer. Very exciting. But yeah, for the most part, we're just competing for mechanical engineers who are coming from defense companies, from boring companies, from just all kinds of places, and they are harder to find. I would say it's much more rare to find that sort of like full stack mechanical engineer who is
Mm.
just
What do you mean
absolutely
full
killer.
stack? Full stack mechanical engineer. What does that refer to? Like what
To
is their
me,
stack, I suppose?
yeah, it's really somebody who's really good at motion system design, really understands electrical and how to integrate sensors, really understands like
Oh.
sheet metal structures, and understands enough about manufacturing to know what are good methods. You can find people who are, they've just been doing injection molding for the last 15 years, or you can find people who are used to building like big steel structures that never move, but finding people who can like kind of do all of the sorts of mechanical that we need to
Hmm.
do is a bit harder. And really, like, we can teach most of the stuff. What we really look for is people who are just,
Hungry.
they love to ship. Yes, yes. And you find that
Totally.
software, because the barrier to entry for shipping is so low that you can find people who just are, they're ripping stuff out. But in
Hmm.
mechanical, these iteration times are so long. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are working at defense companies where they can't even share what they're
Very
working on.
slow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
finding those people who are just, they really, they love the ship. They have a good portfolio of existing work where you can look at it and know that they've done
Yep.
a lot of great work. It's hard to find, surprisingly.
I'm not surprised at all, actually, but just because I mean, talking to a lot of people that are interested in the mechanical side of robotics, it's it's hard because you see a lot of companies, they need the hardware people until they don't, until they have things stood up. And so it's a lot of like work now and then maybe not work later. And so they kind of move around from
Yeah.
job to job for this kind of thing. And there's not many of them because as you said, there's tons of robotic software engineers and there's tons of demand for robotic software engineers. But it's not as clear of a path in my opinion, for mechanical ones. And it's been harder if I know if I have friends that want to go a mechanical path, for them to get kind of like their beachhead for getting started for this kind of thing.
Yeah. It's super tough.
Interesting. Yeah, and you're right about with software where it's like you just ship all the time because things are really easy and are really easy to deploy relatively. Um, it's an interesting thing, but yeah, okay, super cool. And you guys, you recently got a round of funding. We talked a little before, and you said it's a seed. It's like I looked online. Is it the second seed round that you guys?
Yeah. We kind of did it in two tranches. So yeah, pretty much did the second tranche kind of this earlier this year. We've got all of these relationships and like customers,
Hmm.
and we do not have the people or the space to fulfill them. And so we're now kind of shifting a little bit of our mode of like, okay, how do we fulfill these orders that we have, which is a very daunting task. And then how do we kind of step our foot on the gas and get more orders? And it's kind of a cycle that feeds itself.
You're in
So
a scaling spot already,
yeah,
and that's pretty crazy because what I would think. So I've talked with a few investors. I had one on the podcast, Sanjay, and what he was saying is for scaling, like you guys, you're trying to put your foot on the gas and you're trying to deploy a lot. But that's like Series B almost for this. And you guys are just having your seed round, which is very interesting that you're there and starting to scale. Help me think about this. Like, what are your thoughts on it?
yeah,
Y-
I think
You've kind of
we're
bootstrapped, I guess, which is just phenomenal.
yeah, I think it comes back to staying really lean and
Hmm.
just having that team of killers, but certainly some more, we'll certainly have some more fundraising ahead of us, no doubt. And we'll be looking at scaling. Like this is really the early days of scaling. So it's,
Yeah.
it's a lot of still like, not what you would see kind of in that more refined state. But like we just moved offices. So this, like today is the
Yep.
first day I'm going into the new office. So we're doing things like this to like get ourselves set up to do assembly and really scale up the production of these things.
Hmm. Okay. And so I have it as perplexity. And so your seed round that was 13 million, you mentioned the number of people, you're like 10, 15 people or something like
Yeah,
that now.
yeah, yeah.
What do you imagine like in a year from now or I guess it's hard to predict further than that really. What do you think you guys will be in a year from now? Number of people wise.
I suspect we'll double, maybe
That's
more. It kind of
exciting.
depends on how these deployments go. Yeah, I'm really excited. Really
Yeah.
excited.
You're at a cool point because it's like now you get to grow, you get to bring people on, and you get to challenge, like your challenge from hearing from others. I haven't been through it, but your challenge appears to be keeping a good culture for everything and making it so you guys are really productive as you're bringing people on and not letting like little relationship sourings really impact the company because you're still small enough that that really matters still.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're still kind of at that size where it all that team vibe and that culture
Yep.
affects the everything. And it really goes back to, so one part of hiring killers and having this really high standard for hiring is like not just their performance, but are they good people to work with? We
Mm.
have a no smart assholes rule. I don't care how good of an engineer you are. If you're
They're
an
terrible.
asshole,
Yeah, totally.
it just sucks the life out of the team. And so every single person that works here, I just care so deeply about. And they're just genuinely good people. And I think that matters so much when you're in a small team and you're
Oh,
asking these
definitely.
people to show up so heavily. Doing it with people you actually like, it's like night
Oh
and
yeah.
day.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, you could be a family that is like you guys are great relationships, everything's enjoyable, you're going through it together, it's exciting. Or it can be like the company's being successful, but you guys are miserable together
Yeah.
for this kind
What's
of
the
scene.
point of that? Life's so short. I want to love coming into work every day, and I want all of our employees to love coming into work every day.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, that seems really good. Um, yeah, it's such a funny thing if companies get rich, even though they hate what they do. And you're doing this like people who are founding, it's like a lot of times you want control of your time or you want to enjoy your life as much as possible. And you're taking a very active step towards that. And if you do that, you just stand into something that you're miserable with. It's like it defeats the point of doing it
Totally.
almost entirely, which is just so funny.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. What a thing. So what do you so you'll probably double. What do you imagine needing in the next year for this kind of thing? Like what kind of roles? I imagine you're going to be getting more and more into software as you're scaling because that is probably how you do the optimization and the like coordination between all the robots that are out and things like this. But and probably people to do the assembly or not assembly, but the actual. I don't know if you guys contract that out or how it works. But what kind of roles do you think you'll need?
Yeah. I think this will probably be the first phase of the company where engineering is not the department that's growing the most right now. I mean, it's
Wow.
like 90% engineering right now.
I bet.
Um, because, we're just so engineering heavy, but what I suspect will happen is our, sort of our sales and business operations will grow a good bit, as well as our assembly and manufacturing. So, sort of
Mm.
for these next 100, we're really planning on in-housing a lot of the assembly and building. We anticipate the designs to be changing. This is just going to be something that we kind of learn and grow through. So we want to do assembly in-house and move to a bigger place where we can do that. So we'll definitely have some hires there. And then, yeah, all of those kind of detailed engineering we'll continue to add. And it becomes easier to say like, okay, if we hire somebody to go optimize this part of the construction process, once you
Mm.
have enough of those construction processes happening, that person's role pays for itself, very, very quickly. So I
Yeah,
suspect we'll start to add more people who are just really tightly scoped. Whereas right now, everyone's just so generalist and flexing between a lot of different things.
cool. Yeah, that's a smart thing to do. And it's funny to view it as they pay for themselves because that's wonderful. If they can shave off parts of your process and literally justify their own salary, that's
Yep.
super cool. Yeah. What are you guys all in Austin, Texas? Or do you have any remote people? Or I don't know. How do you view remote work?
Yeah, we pretty much always hire in person. We've got two employees who are remote. And it's the times when we go remote they're just so killer that you have to have them, but they've got some of the right life reason for being where they're at, and you can make it work. So like our software engineer, Matt, he's remote. But it kind of set us up for like all of our systems being really remote friendly. So no matter
Yeah,
where our robots are deployed, we can kind of do things. I don't know if you saw the build list voting poll thing.
I'm not
Um,
sure.
that Christian killed it. And there was this like uh, a list of all the deep tech companies, and you could go vote and rank them. But our
Oh.
software engineer, we were joking that like if it's a startup list, the thing to do is to hack it and robo vote your way up just as for fun. And so we had all of our robots. Like we have robots everywhere. We have robots in like Austin and Atlanta and DC. We actually had all of
Super
our
cool.
systems and robots voting in this poll. And so everything's really set up to be remoted into. But yeah, for the most part, when we bring on people, especially engineers, we wanted to be in person and just being able to walk to somebody's desk and like solve problems. It's just
Really
like,
nice.
can't beat
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
for sure. Okay. Yeah, what a cool thing. It makes sense to me software can be remote because a lot of the workflow makes a lot of good sense. And a lot of the like getting in flow, like getting in a good state of focus, what makes a lot of sense. But then for all the mechanical stuff that you're dealing with, like just being able to talk and show, that kind of thing makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Especially having, we have a machinist and a build tech. And so it's like being able to just walk over there to the shop and like make the
Oh
changes that you
yeah,
need and tell them what you need and being able to see how things come together with your hands really matters.
for sure. Do you within the office, do you dog food your systems? Like it'd be very funny. You're sitting at your desk and you like hit, I want a fizzy water or whatever, and then it comes to you by one of your systems or something. I guess you'd need to do a lot of construction in your office to do that, but
Yeah, yeah. I think in the old office there wasn't quite enough space for that. But we might the new one. We're planning on doing an office install in the front yard, front kind of parking lot of our office. So we do want to have one here so that we can use it. Because yeah, like being able to use it and just seeing where it sucks, so you
oh
know where to
yeah,
fix it, is like so important.
oh yeah, dog fooding your own stuff, super super important. Hell yeah, and I like that you guys are remote first for this kind of thing. I feel like it's almost like a minor setup cost, and then it's just so much more flexible from then on. So I think that seems really good.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I would like to. Is there anything we missed about you guys that's really interesting about the like hardware setup or your deployment plans or anything like this?
One of the cool things that we see happening is creating a USB port for the store. And what we mean by that is when, you know, we think that other autonomous modalities will exist. We think drones will exist. We think self-driven cars will exist.
Hmm.
Like I think that delivery is such a big category. There's going to be multiple winners that make sense in different kind of scenarios.
Domains, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so we see ourselves as being this sort of like USB plug where a restaurant or a store can install our system in the back of house. So when their workers are doing their flow and putting in orders, there's one flow. But let's say you wanted to like hand off to a drone. Well, instead of like teaching that worker how to go interface with that drone and setting up space in the parking lot for that
Oh,
drone and like building all
ah,
those
that's so
bespoke
cool.
processes, we can automate that handoff. And
Yep.
so now you can put the system in and maybe we're connected to a field that's like, you know, a mile away, but all of these kind of drone orders are coming to this field. We can hand off autonomously. And so when restaurants and partners install our system, they're kind of like future proofing themselves and setting themselves up to work with multiple modalities as we expand. And it kind of plays into these network effects because as soon as you add one drone hub to this network, every restaurant that's on that network, every grocery store, every warehouse now
Hmm.
has drone delivery without having to like ever take that on themselves.
That is super cool. Yeah, that's another, like we were talking about the other, how you could do a lot of pipe laying down. You could also be this super good interface for all of these other modalities. That's another really powerful model, I think.
Yeah. And you hit on it with the shipping container, right? Like we have this already at a global scale. We don't have anything sized down at the
Hmm.
order level, at the individual card.
Hmm.
We think there's room to create that. You could have a sidewalk robot do the last 100 feet from that neighborhood portal down to your specific spot. There's a bunch of like, I think a bunch of options that will just be available if we approach this in a way that's easily standardized.
Yeah, and you threw the constraints. I mean, one, it's pragmatic to choose a kind of standard container for all of your things. But two, a result of doing that is that you then give something a standard. You give other companies a standard interface for a payload, which makes it so that it's very easy for them to potentially move things. So yeah, you could just make it so that you route things. I could even imagine like factories wanting this for like sending parts from here to there and part of their process because a lot of times they have conveyor systems, but they might have adjacent warehouses where they're doing things and maybe they want to route things from one to another. And there's currently a guy with a forklift that stacks a bunch of them and drives them from one to another. Or maybe if they're really savvy, they have like a mobile robot that does it. But you could have this really fast feed through this.
Yeah, it's kind of like a conveyor belt that can stream,
Yeah.
and your distance is like not really constrained. You just go as far
Yeah.
as you want.
You are limited by your number of robots, is the thing. But I suppose if you make, like, they're in a loop, and you can probably make pretty good reuse of them, and they go fast. But if you had a lot of endpoints, I don't know. It's so cool. Yeah, there's so many cool possibilities. You could just, like, you can basically be an infrastructure for moving stuff. And it's like, that's super, super general. And cities is one thing, and food delivery is part of that. But there's a lot of opportunities, I would imagine. Even like, how funny would it be if banks stopped using their vacuum system and just use the robots? Because the thing is
Yeah,
with the vacuum system, if it fails in one spot, it probably takes down the whole system. Whereas this is much more fault tolerant. One robot fails, one pipe fails. Okay, don't use that one. But
yeah,
the rest of
yeah.
them are open.
Yeah, and we've got versions of this. It doesn't have to be underground. Really, what matters is that there's a space around the robot. And so
Yep.
we've got a version of this that's an overhead ducting. And so we've talked to some stadiums about connecting kitchens to different drop points in the stadium.
Oh my gosh.
Um, but it's at the end of the day, we've created a utility that gets things from A to B, and what you send and where A and where B are
Don't matter.
super flexible. Yeah, you just
Yeah.
have to
And you
make the
just have
base
your
components.
interfaces, your portals.
Yep.
Is it portal on the sending side for this
It
kind of
is,
thing?
yes. And
Okay.
they're always those portals are different too.
Yep.
And they're optimized for like totally different things. You really have to make
Totally.
something that any worker can go and use easily, and it can still be fast and easily
Yeah.
serviced. So
And you could, I mean, I could imagine that your portal becomes general enough that they just put a hamburger on like if it's a fast food one, they just put a hamburger on a tray that then lowers and it boxes it and sends it off. Like you can continue to optimize these things pretty
yeah.
heavily.
Yeah. And by we use a standard tote that's already used really prevalently throughout the grocery industry.
Oh,
There's ASRS systems already built around storing and
what's
retrieving these totes.
what's ASR? I don't know what that.
Automated storage and retrieval.
Oh, I would have known that acronym. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So it's these big systems that are, a lot of these warehouses are goods to person. So they've got to store
Yep.
all these totes and then pull your tote to you to get your item. It's what that means is there's a lot of automation built around this one already. And so
Yep.
we could plug into that. And so you could have an automated warehouse like an Ocado style where they are storing items, bringing bins, picking the bins, which eventually will be a robot picking them. And then you can have that
Yep.
just send directly into our system. We see the
Yeah.
modularity as such a key piece to this scaling and being an effective utility.
Yeah. And I'm imagining, like, I've interviewed Plus One Robotics, also here in Texas. They do a lot of like parcel sorting and parcel placing, I think. And the interesting thing with that is you see that what they do is you get a parcel, like a bunch of parcels, a bunch of boxes, and then they have a robot that puts them on conveyors to route them all different places, and they come back together on another parcel once they're collected for one thing, and they just keep going. Like, you guys could eventually have your own logistics network that includes all that.
Yes.
Because that would make a lot of sense. In fact, like, you
Yeah.
could have bigger payloads, and then you could distribute them, and then you could route those further.
And if you think about if you are, let's say we're starting a 3PL company and we're like, okay, I got to go buy this warehouse to do this automation.
Hmm.
You want somewhere where, that warehouse is cheap and you can actually get it. You can get workers there, but you also want it close to where you're delivering things.
Yep.
We don't have that same problem.
No.
We actually are this kind of interesting retail arbitrage where we can go to really undesirable and cheap land, build this big warehouse, centralized and it moves so much volume through that you can like invest heavily in automation for these maybe sorting systems.
Huh.
But then because you've got that pipe running all the way into the city and then you connect to this broader network, it's as if I have this massive warehouse with all this automation in a parking lot right next to your house.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, it's free to get things from that warehouse to that parking lot. And so we've just turned the value of that spot on its head because we just had to plug in this big system.
That's wild. Yeah, you're in such an exciting position, it seems like to me. That's sick.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting.
Like, movement as a service of items for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And your cost is you lay down pipe, which there's pipe lay down everywhere. But there's a lot of stuff in society to move. And so that's exciting.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head earlier about there's a lot of great options ahead of us. And what really matters now is what path do we select and where do we go? Yeah. Because it's like there are a billion, moving applications. We've really tried to down select for like what things will have network effects. If we go to a stadium, will that stadium ever send items and foods into the city? Probably not. is there an interesting business line there? Yes. And at some point, it really would make sense to
And
just
it'd be
like
a good
spin up a
gimmick.
small team. Yeah. Yeah. And like, there's times where that'll make sense. But when those early days, focus in on those places that are going to add to those network
Add to your
effects,
network
add to the
effect.
flywheel. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Very
And it,
cool.
yeah. And it
Go
becomes a
ahead.
land grab at a certain point, you know, like there's probably only going to be one of these systems in a specific area
Oh, totally.
because you want these network effects to build up. And so there's going to be this like, once you prove that model out in one metro area, I think there's going to be this huge land
Tons of
grab
copies.
where,
Yeah.
where we really just try to deploy as much as possible because once that portal is in, we can just kind of extract value and create value around that portal for decades.
Yeah, it is interesting because but then that's where coming in early is very good because you start to gain efficiencies of scale. And so you can probably do it much cheaper and you've already gone through regulation and things like this. So that's something that's a big moat in a sense. Like your technology to me, I'm sure the portals are quite complex. You can add like that, you can optimize the hell out of those. But your fundamental robot and pipes are pretty simple with this. So it's an interesting thing. So then what I would imagine is once there's more entrance into this space, it's going to become more about efficiency, unless you just have a cash burning machine. But seems like why would they do that? Why would VCs invest in that when there already is you guys for this kind of thing? I guess maybe the
Yeah.
return that they could
The,
get if it's earlier.
yeah. The other piece is the supply side relationships. So,
Yeah, totally.
you know, there's only so many
Big companies.
restaurant. Yeah.
Yep.
Restaurants, like there's only so many of these partners and we've had contact with most of them. And so if we could build those relationships and show them in a single metro area, here is a working model, let's go scale this up together nationwide.
hmm
You know, they're a lot less incentivized to go work with somebody else. I'm sure they will at some point, right? But if we could move quickly and just get it going, I think it's like once this ball starts rolling, I think there's going to be a ton of momentum.
Yeah. I think your biggest challenge is going to be keeping your team culture. Like to me, that's the big risk at this point is you guys need to not destroy yourselves because
Yep.
you have it was like you have a golden goose in a sense. And it's like all the people stuff becomes like all of your other risks are out of the way in some sense. I know that there's still other things, but it seems like that will be kind of the big challenge of the startup to me.
Yeah. And that's why when I, walk out of this room and I see our team, it's like, I just feel so good about that problem
Hell
because
yeah.
everybody there is just already kind of,
You like them a lot. Yes.
and they are going to be, now I'm doing all the interviews, but at some point it's going to be them, the people they hire. And it's like,
Yep.
you kind of hire people that you think are similar to you in some ways, I think. So like keeping great people is going to make it easier to keep getting great people. And working on
Yep.
a hard problem makes it so much easier too. So, but yeah, nail the head. Talent and culture are the big things ahead of us.
Hell yeah. But that's a very exciting spot to be in, especially because you're coming from what seems like a strong position already from that. So hell yeah.
Yeah, man.
Let's see. So we are coming to the end of the thing. So you have already started, you mentioned you already founded a company in the past. And so now you're a founder of Pipedream, right?
Co-founder. Yeah. With Garrett.
Co-founder. Yeah, with Garrett. Okay, hell yeah. What advice do you have for other founders? Like, I don't know. Like, what things would save you a lot of time, or what? I don't know. Like, what would be good to tell founders? I suppose.
Yeah. To me, the number one thing with starting a company is starting something that you can wake up every day and work on and be excited to go to bed at night thinking about. And it's a problem that you genuinely care about and the people in the industry you actually want to work with. Like this is such a painful and difficult process, no matter what, that if you don't love every second of it, it's hard. It's a hard job. It's like, it sucks if you don't love it, if you didn't love the pieces of it.
Totally.
And the other thing is like, I really am a fan of taking big swings like this. Like Pipedream, there's probably like a 2 to 5% chance this like works and scales and is a real thing. Man, that like 2 to 5% chance is so exciting. And that
Oh,
world is
totally.
so exciting where that works. So it's like optimizing for those problems that are hard. It comes with its own set of challenges, but a lot of those challenges can be controlled internally through engineering or problem solving. Whereas if you're in a space where you're just competing with a ton of people who are all doing the same thing, it's just,
Oh, it's awful.
it's Yeah, dude, it's a lot
Your
different. So I'm a
commodity.
fan of, yeah, yeah. Go for the big swing. Go for the thing that when you tell somebody, they're like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. And they get excited to hear about. And go for something that has a brainworm to it. You know, Pipedream has a certain brainworm. We'll talk to people
What do
and
you
they'll ask
mean?
a ton of questions.
A brain what?
Brainworm.
Brainworm. Hell yeah. So you mean like they get it in their head, they can't stop thinking about it and the
Yeah. And
implications
the
of it?
next, yeah, the next time you see
Ah.
them, they've got all these questions and they've thought through this thing and they're always great questions. And just an idea that has this sort of like mimetic potential.
That's super cool. Yeah, what a think. So how do you talking about the problem you always love? I mean, even when you love a problem at some point you and like even if you enjoy the work, there is a point where you can do too much or you won't like it, but you still have to keep showing up. I find like any project that I start, anything I do, after some point I am no longer wanting to work on that project. And I think that that's natural because you want to work on other things and you want to whatever, but you have to keep showing up anyway. Um, how do you, because the advice of like, just love what you do, I almost feel like it's a little discouraging because at some point you find that you really hate your problem for this kind of thing once you've been in it for so long. And everything is painful. Like you've solved all the easy problems and the only things left are the hard ones. How do you keep showing up?
You talk to customers. It
Oh,
sure you
that's cool.
for me, yeah, dude. It's when you get on that call and I've been in the account all week and like, cuz it's like driving me crazy. We're trying to solve this problem. But then you get on the call with the customers and they're trying to get it faster and they're just, when can I get this thing? And they're telling you about and usually like our system is so simple and it's hard to create a simple thing. But once you create it, anybody can catch on and start to contribute to the idea. And so their customers are coming in with ideas for like, maybe we do it this way, maybe we do it this way. And like they are getting excited about it. When you're at your lowest, if you're working with customers you like, that's the piece, that's to me the piece that keeps you going.
Their energy, in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they've always got a new thing that they want. And you got to find the limit, right? You can't just engineer forever, but they've
No, and you
always
can't do
got a
all their things,
perspective.
but you can take the perspective and you can take the excitement and everything.
Yeah. And that keeps it fun. It's like that next thing to kind of work towards or work on.
Hell yeah. Okay. Well, that seems super exciting. So if there is one thing that people take away from this interview, what do you hope it is?
Go do that hard thing. Think about what you want society to look like and how you can help create that and like go work on it. It's hard, but it's so worthwhile. And our cities and our society and our world is not going anywhere anytime soon. Like let's keep building together and just build interesting things.
Hell yeah. Love it. All right. Thank you, Canna. This was a blast.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everyone. That's it for this episode with Canon Reeves from Pipedream Labs. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about the idea of getting my food delivered through underground pipes. It's wild to think about how this could change our cities and the way we get stuff. What do you think? Could underground delivery networks be the future of last mile logistics? Or is this just a pipe dream? See what I did there? As always, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.